Now we're live. All right. Hi, everyone. You're not seeing me right now. I'm off camera, but as usual, this is Jax West from Stephen Avery Project, Justice with Jax, and MAM Gossip. We are here live today with Stephen's cousin, Kim, and a local resident, Courtney, who I came across that they had done a YouTube video not that long ago that got posted in MAM Gossip. And so they've got things to say about this case and this area that you might not have heard before. And so us at Stephen Avery Project, you know, we like to bring you all the facts and all the different things involved in the case. So we're here today with them, and they're gonna talk and tell you about themselves and what they want to discuss on the case. You guys can submit questions if you'd like. I'm behind the camera, so I'm seeing your comments, and yes, hello to everybody who's been saying hello so far. I will ask your questions on occasion. But right now, I really wanted to give them a platform on Stephen Avery Project to say what they know and what they want out there, since we've got, you know, all you people out there following. Right now, we've got 304 people watching. So, who would like to go? So, and this is Courtney, and this is Kim, and you might recognize Kim. She's been in Making a Murderer, so she is Stephen's cousin who has been there for him since the start. Has always. Oh, Dave Bagaka says hello, everyone.
Hey, Dave.
So she's one of the steadfast supporters from the family for Stephen. So, all right, Courtney, would you like to start?
I guess so. I want to start first because it's the best place for us to start, to say that we're not YouTubers. We're not out here trying to get an audience or anything like that. We just really feel like we have some relevant things to say, especially from being in the area. And since we made our video, we had a lot of people reach out to us. A lot of locals want to talk. I think a lot of people think that the locals don't want to talk and they're against Stephen and everything. But,
I'm sorry, I just saw puppies. Sorry.
Yeah, I see. Oh my God, puppies. But people do want to talk. And
They say can't hear, so you need to make sure you talk up.
Oh boy.
I'll move it even closer to you.
Okay. What I was saying is that I think that the general consensus with a lot of the truther community is that the people in this area don't want to speak up and don't want to talk. And I found that people do want to talk. They're afraid to talk. And we're doing it anonymously and often. And we respect that they don't want their names revealed. So I guess.
And we would never do that.
They're still saying can't hear, so make sure you're talking loud.
Okay.
You project.
We would never reveal our sources. If anybody wants to come forward with anything, whatever you say to us stays between me and Courtney. We will reveal the information maybe, but we will never ever tell a name, ever.
And so essentially everything we have is what we've heard here, but I still think it's pretty important. We don't have a name. We're not going to give you these people because they're afraid. To this day, they're afraid to speak up of what's going on in these counties.
Mm-hmm.
So, on that note, I'm going to assume that I have to admit I'm not very great at getting my own story out. I had a case against Calumet County that we had reopened from 2003 to 2006 during the whole frame of Avery and Dassey through Calumet County. It's the same players. My case involves Ken Kratz, Mike Klaser, Pagel, Calumet County, and I have proof that Mike Klaser falsified the death certificate in my brother's case. He falsified evidence in our investigation. It's a hard case to continue on with because we're meeting so much resistance, but we are not done. They know that I'm out here. They know the chief of police, the Calumet County District Attorney, the Department of Justice, Jeff Wish at DCI, all know that I am actively and outwardly accusing them of corruption. In my own case, in my brother's case, and one, of course I believe that's relevant because Mike Glazer falsified the death certificate or whatever the hell he did with that, and the same county is involved. It's always been kind of a thorn in my side that everybody was saying it was Manitowoc County that was so corrupt, when I know absolutely Calumet is just as corrupt. People around here don't, I think someone was telling me yesterday that Calumet and Manitowoc are actually like sister counties. You know, they're together. They all went to the same schools, all these officials. So I believe there was absolutely a reason they brought in Calumet County. Of all the counties, it was Calumet, because they're as corrupt. So
Yeah, because why wouldn't they bring in Brown County? You know, it's more, it's closer to Rivers, to Manitowoc County.
Okay.
So I would have thought immediately Brown County would have been called in. But I don't think Brown County was involved in anything, you know, other than maybe transporting Steve or Brendan somewhere. But as far as the investigation, they weren't involved at all.
Okay.
a couple people that I met with locally told me that Green Bay and Brown County, the word there too is that Manitowoc's the most corrupt county. So if they're saying it out loud, I don't think they're going to want them to come in and handle this case.
Mm-hmm.
It's very tight around here. This is a very odd and corrupted area.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so you have Stevens, the first case, Penny Bernstein. So, Kim, can you give us like anything on that? You know, because that's when, for the Avery case, the corruption starts, on when they got him for that. So, what's like the story behind them getting Steven for the Penny Bernstein?
I think it all stems from, you know, Peterson, Herman, Sandra Morris's husband, and unfortunately Steve's uncle Arlen. You know, if you look at that case, and when Steve actually was convicted, how all these people moved up the rank, including Arlen.
Really?
Now Arlen, the story I got from my relatives is that Arlen was threatened to have Steve arrested and plant things on Steve. And then when he did that, he got his promotion. You know.
Didn't you say something about the jacket?
Yeah, there was a leather jacket that they needed to find, and Arlen found it in Steve's attic. Steve's never wore a leather
Gregory
jacket.
Allen was
Yeah.
supposedly wearing a
leather
black leather jacket.
Right.
So Arlen found one up in the attic
Right.
that they used as evidence against Steven.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
And Kim, how are you related?
I'm Steve's cousin,
And from which side?
my mom's side.
And then is it Alan or Dolores that
Del-
you're?
Alan.
Alan. Okay.
Explain who you are, yeah.
Yeah. My grandfather and Steven's grandmother are brother and sister. So that would make us cousins then.
Okay.
So it's Al's mom is married to your grandpa. Is that right? Or your grandma?
No, they're sisters.
They're brother and sister. My grandpa, my mom's dad,
Mm-hmm.
is Al's mom's sister. They're brother and sister.
I still don't have it right, but you, know,
No.
you got it.
Our family tree does not go straight up. It does branch out.
And what was Steven like when you were younger? Did you know?
He was awesome. He stayed at our house. He slept over a lot. He was real good friends with my brother. You know, if one of us needed help with our cars or whatever, he was always there. He'd get us the parts. He'd go wherever he needed to help, you know, to pick us up if we broke down. We had parties with Steve, you know, out in the boonies. He was just an awesome guy. He was just always around. And when we were real little, we were always over there. You know, we were there for Christmas. We were there for, you know, holidays, just weekends. And then as we got a little bit older and we started having kids, well, unfortunately, Steve was in prison by then. But even the rest of the family, we would have birthday parties together, our kids. And, you know, Steve was awesome. He'd give the shirt off his back for anybody. He was just always there.
Well, and let me just say to the people that keep asking about Bobby question, we'll get to Bobby at some point. But Bobby's not our focus for today. thing that I want you guys to talk about that is always so confusing is how all these different law enforcement and all these things, how all these people are connected, you know, that they're related or part of this case and that case. And you've got the Ricky Hochstetler case and your case, Courtney, you know, so can you explain to people who all these people are?
With my own case and my research, my brother died in 67, so I spent a lot of time looking into the old newspapers in 67 to try to figure out what the heck happened because they were lying to us. So in my research, I was able to find Mark Ott, who was the cop who did our investigation in 2003, 4, 5. I was able to trace him back, and his dad and his, you know, great aunt, great uncle, aunt, uncle, his whole family working in law enforcement, as well as the Pagels, of course. And just noticing that, you know, that Calumet County was run by the same families for a long time. In my own brother's case, well, you know, that was one of the big things, is that Mark Ott never told us his dad was a cop. Never told us his great aunt and uncle were the sheriffs and stuff like that. So we were like, what's going on here? Kind of traced the story back of my dad getting beat up by the cops in 64, and it was Mark Ott's great uncle. You know, it was just like, why did he take our case when there's any type of involvement, when his dad was working there, you know, all of that. And then Mark had lied too about not knowing who the chief of police was in 67, and here he worked for him for years, actually built his office. And so yeah, I could just see a pattern of, you know, the good old boys club or whatever was going on.
And Kim Vest says hi to both of you.
Hey, Kim. One of the things that happened after making a murder, my family, my sisters and I, we came out to town because we were looking for answers, and we sense a creepiness out here. There's something weird about this county. I'm sorry, I tell you that all the time. There's just something wrong. And we felt it was real odd when we go to the taverns, or, you know, if we'd try to go in and get records, everybody at the county was just rude, and, you know, there was something bigger going on. Started listening to Dave Bogatka way back when he first came out, and that really registered with me because we had been looking into St. Nazians and, you know, some of the creepy areas in this town, because something's not right. Dave talked about a club that goes on in this area, and he owned a bar, and they kept coming in with these naked pictures saying, we want you to join our club. You need to join our club. And Dave was saying, I'm not joining your club. He had a bartender named Mary Ann Denny, and Dave went out of town hunting, and before he left, Mary Ann said, these guys want you to join the club. And Dave said, we're not joining it, I'm gonna call the cops. And Mary Ann said, it is the cops. And when Dave got home, she was murdered.
Wow.
So Dave's story goes into how these prominent people, teachers, one of them is right now our I always say Calumet, our Manitowoc County Executive, Bob Ziegelbauer. Dave just put out a while ago that it was he who walked in with pictures to Dave, naked men having sex, people having sex, saying you need to join our club.
Oh my God.
So of course we're just like, what the heck is that about? But yeah, something's dark and twisty around here. And then in my case with my brother, there was some weird connection with the chief of police, the medical assistant, being voted in as the president and the vice president of the Kiwanis Club just a few weeks after my brother was killed.
Okay.
So these two people that covered up the rape, torture, and murder of my 2-year-old brother are now voted in as presidents of these, you know, supposed children's organizations, which I think is pretty shady in itself. And I'm not saying everybody in Kiwanis Club, people don't know what's really going on. So, I don't know.
And, you know, people keep saying about them pictures, you know, who cares what they're doing? No, that's not even the point.
We haven't brought up the pictures.
I know, but a lot of people know about the pictures. It's not the point what they're doing in the pictures. I don't give two craps what they're doing in the pictures. It's who is in these pictures that we're focused on.
Right, and just recently Dave was able to, you know, I called him up and said, okay, give us all the names. all the names of who you have, because he really hasn't, because of all the reasons, you know.
Right.
And he gave us the names, and Kim's got a yearbook, and these are teachers that were in these pictures.
Okay.
Coaches, yep. You were saying, you know, the art teacher, she's like, oh my God. So we have this, one of the guys that Dave had asked me about, and I don't really know his connection to it, was a cop named Thorington. So I started, what happened was because I was looking into all this old stuff and researching the Avery Dassey stuff, I came across someone else saying there's these pictures that are out from the Laurencia Bembenek trial in 1980.
Okay.
And it's about all these cops, and if anybody remembers that trial, Christine Schultz was murdered. Laurencia Bembenek was set up over this album full of 150 pictures of these cops at this Trax Tavern parties they used to have in Milwaukee.
Okay.
So I found this blog spot. There's 8 pictures that are released. And of course I looked at them and went, who could identify anyone, right? Then somebody had said on Reddit, there's one guy that looks like Ken Kratz. So sure enough, I look at the picture and I'm like, gee, that looks like Ken Kratz. So I started researching into old papers. I had all the subscriptions and finding Kratz. And I found a few pictures and I was already convinced, yeah, that looks like Kratz. So decided, all right, maybe that's Kratz, maybe you're crazy. So then I remembered what Peterson looked like, because all of my research brought me back to the 60s. So, you know, I knew what Peterson looked like, I knew what Bushman looked like, I knew what Kusurik looked like, and so I definitely knew what Mark Ott looked like. He's on the other side of this. So I kept looking at the pictures going, all right, if this is it, I have to research it. I don't know. Well, I started putting everybody together in the pictures, and we got 21 people, and they're all from the area. We just realized a couple weeks ago, because Dave Bogatka was saying, I think those pictures look like they were at Maribel. Kim was saying, those look like it could be Maribel. Well, we went out to Maribel, and sure enough, it's Maribel.
Oh,
the
Maribel.
Same trees are standing, the same crooks in the trees. Yep. So there's a lot of confusion. We haven't really gotten so far at getting more of that done, but through that happening, me realizing these are the people in the pictures, I came to Manitowoc because I needed to meet people that could tell me who was in the pictures. And I met people, and they were identifying Judy Dvorak. We have 5 or 6 people now that will say that is Judy Dvorak.
Remind people who Judy Dvorak is.
Judy Dvorak is the one that worked with Sandra Morris pretty much in 85 and said, that's Stephen Avery. That sounds like Stephen Avery.
With Penny Bernstein.
Penny Bernstein. And what's so ironic about that is that I also interviewed the police officer at the time who did the Gregory Allen investigation in 85, he and his partner, and he said to me, they knew it wasn't Stephen Avery, it was Gregory Allen, and when they brought it to Tom Kusurik, he ripped it up. And when the man tells the story, every time he says he ripped it up. And I said to him, what was going on back then? And he said the Kusuriks and the Bernsteins were best friends. He actually said, and then he changed his story, well, he just didn't say it that way again, I just kept track of, I asked him many times. He said he thought Tom was fucking Penny. Now, I know, everybody, I know this is a horrible story to hear. I know that it's off the wall, but something more went on there. And we got the cop that'll say he even went through a deposition with the FBI when they were deposing everybody, and he said, yes, we knew it was Gregory Allen. They never used it. The FBI never used it. He said they never talked to him again. So he also told me, because I brought the pictures in there, and he had never seen them, and he said he was never at a party like that, which of course,
because he's
a good cop, but where was I at? Let's talk about Leo here.
Have these pictures been posted? Is there some place where people could go and see these pictures?
Yeah, I have them on my Reddit account. I'm not very social, so I don't have a lot of stuff out there. I remember what I was saying. This happens all the time.
Me too, don't worry.
It's significant with Judy Dvorak, because what this retired officer already said to me too was that Stephen never flashed cars. He said he didn't go out there like what Judy and Sandra were saying. He said he'd go out there and he'd pretend he was shaking his tits at him. He didn't unzip his pants. He said he was a dumb kid, but he wasn't stripping.
Right.
And what I find ironic is that these same pictures that we're bringing out, that's what they're doing in the pictures. And Judy Dvorak standing in the background with a huge smile on her face while who I believe is Mike Bushman is standing on a table naked, stroking off.
Oh my.
So yeah, we took these pictures to Larry Ledvina, you know, and
when a cop doesn't say anything, that says 1,000 words.
Yes.
yeah, Larry Ledvina told us we must have photoshopped him. He told us the statute of limitations was over. It wouldn't matter if Judy Dvorak was in him. Because, you know, we know. I also said to this cop, I said, what would have happened if these cops are in these pictures? What would have happened back then? And he said, I said, would they have lost their jobs? He said, they would have gone to prison. You know, and we know that Ben Bennick was framed and Christine Schultz was murdered over these pictures because it's supposedly all the Milwaukee cops. We don't know. We've just realized that the pictures were at Maribel. I am in contact with Laurencia Ben Bennick's lawyer. She says good luck to Zellner, good luck to Avery, because it is that dark and dirty. She claims that she sent me an email a few weeks ago saying that Ira Robbins, who was Ben Bennick's private investigator, did send the Avery lawyers information on suspects from these Trax pictures. Then I said to her, so you're telling me that Avery's lawyers knew about these Trax Tavern pictures? And she said, let me clarify, she doesn't know what was sent, but she said something about a Jason Zipperer. So I sent her a picture of Jason Zipperer. He's the liaison officer in Two Rivers right now. And
Really?
I said to her, because in the original Trax pictures that were put out, there's a guy that's circled who I've identified as Andy Colburn. I never knew why it was circled. The pictures have no explanation, but there's a red circle around this guy's face who I feel I've identified as Andy Colburn. And I sent it back to, her name is Mary Warrer, Ben Bennick's lawyer, and I said, this is who I think you might think was Zipperer, but this is Andy Colburn. I don't know why Jason Zipperer's name, why she, after all these years, remembered that name. She says she's working, she said she'll help us when she can. I don't know what that means. I talked to the reporter that put out the original pictures in the 80s. He worked for the Shepherd Express. And I talked to him months ago and he claimed he was gonna help us. Oh, I can get a copy of the pictures, and he had me making all these calls to see if this one, so anyway, I didn't really bother him much anymore. I called him a few weeks ago and now he's totally changed his tune. And he's saying exactly what the Manitowoc cops are saying. He's saying, he actually said, well, you know, nobody lost their job over those pictures anyway. And that the statute of limitations is over. And so I asked him, I said, I want to know these pictures. Laurencia Ben Bennick died November of 2010. This blog spot came out. These pictures were released in December of 2010. And then this journalist actually writes a comment under the picture saying he was followed for the pictures by, I don't know, the FBI or whatever, that these pictures are a big deal, right? Now he's telling me not such a big deal. So I said to him, are these the 8 pictures? Because these are it. These 8 pictures, the Milwaukee Police Department got rid of their album, of course, right? No longer around. So locals, people from the, you know, the towns were sending the private investigator the pictures. So I assume that's where they came from. So I said it to this Tim Meyer, the journalist, I said, are these the 8 pictures that you released back then? Because Alfred Schultz is in them. Alfred Schultz is a Milwaukee cop. He was married to Ben Bennick. He was Christine Schultz's ex-wife or ex-husband, and he's who we suspect killed her. So he's saying, well, Alfred Schultz is in those pictures, and I said, we can tie him to this area. His wife grew up in my neighborhood in Appleton, so, you know, and I said, these are from Maribel. We're proving they're from Maribel, and he says, so he's saying he put out these 8 pictures and others. And I said, can you help us get the others? because we have 2 men that are wrongfully convicted. Could really use your help. Oh, no, I couldn't possibly get those. I work for another paper now. Won't help us at all. And I said, so you mean to tell me you put out 8 pictures of Manitowoc cops in the Milwaukee paper in the 80s? And then I said, sounds like you're working with the cops to me. And he says, we're done with this conversation now.
Oh, of course you are.
But you see, it's the media too, how they play it for all the people to believe that they're really doing something. And I think it was a setup back then. I don't know why it's these 8 pictures, but we are able to identify people in them.
Okay,
So-
now we need to tie that with the Avery case.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay, we can.
I hate
we
to say
believe.
it, but one of the people in that picture, and I will stake my life on it, looks like Chuck Avery.
So we have these creepy parties with cops getting naked that happened in Maribel now, and Chuck Avery's in them. So
So
we weren't
Wow.
looking for that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, you're not expecting that at all. Yeah.
So now the cops, and I'm saying like all the ones that are make things disappear, Peterson, Herman, Kasurik, that whole bunch.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, or we believe, these people that are in these pictures are being blackmailed. Okay, you're gonna do what we say, you're gonna work with us, and you're safe.
Favors,
that's it.
blackmail.
Yeah,
you
favors.
know?
So, did Steve happen to buy these pictures? Does Steve know about these?
Mm-hmm.
Because there is one telephone conversation that I have yet today to be able to find again, where Chuck says to Steve, "You got me in trouble with them pictures." And Steve said, "I got rid of them a long time ago."
Really?
And Chuck says, well, they got him. And we don't know. We know he robbed that bar. I think it was 82. Was it 80 or 82 he robbed the
I
bar?
think it was 82.
And the story goes he stole quarters and sandwiches.
Right.
Well, Kim used to hang out at the bar that he robbed, and they were making videos out there all the time. She was still a minor.
Yeah,
So it was when
16 we
videos
drinking
were
out,
new and
you
cool.
know?
So yeah, they were making videos, and we don't know. We haven't put it together.
Well, and Kim Vest just said Sherry Colhane is the blonde in the pictures.
Yeah, and Deb Kakash
With the
is
hair?
in them, and Couché, and a lot of people are talking about the dogs. Well, there's this guy named Christopher. I thought it was Katz, K-A-T-Z, but it's Kotz, because Millbilly just put out the phone call from Colburn, and he's asking for the vet Kotz, so I assume it's Kotz.
Uh-huh.
And we can track him back to training Bushman's goddamn dog.
No,
We
the vet that he called is here in Two Rivers.
Why do you
Really?
call
There's a
that vet?
veterinary right in Mishkat, a few miles from the Avery property.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you call that?
Right.
And this guy's
Yeah.
in the pictures. It's him, you know,
Yeah.
like, and he was buddies with Bushman. And then the old newspaper articles say that they would go, this Christopher Kotz and Mike Bushman would take this dog and they'd go solve other crimes.
Okay.
So I just personally believe that the cops, a bunch of corrupt cops, aren't going to corrupt their dog in some way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you got Bushman who's showing up with his dog all the time, the dog, and is his dog doing what the other dogs they brought in did? I don't even know. But you know what I mean? Why we don't know why this guy is tied into it, but
Yeah.
I can track him back to training the canine dogs in the area. So why is he standing on this table naked with Bushman
Oh my
and the
God.
others?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're and Chuck Avery is not in the pictures, but he's standing in the background. But
Yeah, he's not doing anything.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
but he's there watching.
Yeah.
and
yeah.
there's kids in the background. There's a dog. We're just, you know, it's been such a mystery what's even going on in these
Yeah.
pictures. So we're trying to get people to identify more people, and in doing that, we've met a lot of people. Like people are calling us and wanting to talk. So I was saying before that Dave Bagatka one day in one of our conversations, I always write down what we're talking about, and he had asked me about a guy named Thorington. Well, I didn't really know why he asked me about a guy named Thorington until I met 2 different locals that are telling me the same story about a murder in our area, and they're both saying it was a cop named Rick Thorington. And it's pretty brutal. It's not, It's horrible.
There.
It's crazy because I have two different people telling me the same story from a different perspective, but it's about this same cop and this same other guy that was a pedophile, raped his own daughters, you know, and locals saw this cop and this guy walk out with this woman, and she came up murdered a week later, and another guy got framed for it. And he's
still fighting to get out of prison.
And the whole story is Kosurik is all tied into that one. His name is Randall Matea. We haven't met with him.
It was Pamela Claflin. I think I'm saying that right. Claflin case.
Yeah.
If you dig into that case, all these same corrupted cops are with that one, except for Thornton. He's not involved in the Avery case that I know of. But he's in with the Matea case. These same cops come up with the Fensel case.
Deborah Sakawati case, yep. And people don't know this. Maybe people don't know this. Deborah Sakawati had pool balls in her vagina. You know, we're not talking about, you know, this is some horrific things going on. I met with so many people, but I met with one guy. I don't know how much I can go into detail about the story, but he told me, and I think it was within the last 5 years, I assume, from the way he told the story. He said he was out one night, he was driving a tow truck. They called, a young woman needed a tow. It was a real bad night. He went out there. Now, mind you, this guy wouldn't even talk to me. We had to meet secretly. He was that afraid of speaking about anything.
Who can blame him?
Right, so it was really crazy because the minute we met, all of a sudden he just looked down and he went, "Bushman's dirty."
Oh.
And I didn't even look up, and I said, "I know," because I do know. But he was saying, so he went to this young woman, I don't know, had slid off the highway. He had to go help her out. When he was on the highway trying to help her, other cars were sliding into him, so he called the police in Manitowoc here because he wanted them to control the traffic because they were getting hit. He didn't really know what happened after. You know, he did his job.
Right.
Ran into the woman later, and she said to him, "Why did you call the cops?" And he said, "Because we were going to get killed out there." You know, and she said, the woman says, "He raped me."
Oh my God.
Yeah, this is going on here.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, people want to, you know, everybody is out there saying, we wouldn't even drive to Wisconsin. Don't go near that area. You know, it's happening. And
you can come here as long as you don't know anything. And you can publicly speak about it.
Right.
If I ever come up missing, I want Peterson investigated. Because I'm coming for him. He is top on my list. I want that.
Has anybody ever messed with you?
I've had 2 threatening phone calls already within the last couple of years. This one,
a couple months.
Yeah, they were months. This last one was just a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Really?
They keep telling me to back the fuck off. You know, if it's the cops, hey, you know where I live? Come knock on my door.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of them. You know, I have nothing to hide. Anything happens to me or Courtney or my family, what do they call that? A dead man's switch?
Yeah, right. I'm not so worried about getting killed. I'm worried about them framing me, and I'm worried about what some of these dirty bastards do after they get you. You know,
right.
I do believe it's that is absolutely going on out here. And
well, when you say then that Chuck is seen in the picture, so do you think Chuck has anything to do with what has happened to Stephen?
In meeting with another local in the area, we were talking about the night Ricky Hochstetler died, and another person that was around that she suspected of doing it. She said the next day when she was in the bar, that the bartender, I'll just say that, was working. 2 guys were sitting there, And one of them said, what'd they do with the vehicle? And the other guy said they took it to the Avery salvage yard. Now listen, I said to the lady, wait. Are you sure? You know, because we're at Cleveland salvage yard. You surely mean Cleveland salvage yard.
And who owns Cleveland salvage yard?
The Hermans, Rob Herman, Todd Herman, Greg Herman, Jeff, I don't know. Yeah, the Hermans, who are suspected of hitting Ricky, okay? So she was like, no. They said the Avery salvage yard, they said it would be gone by noon, okay? So I was just like, come on. And I went and re-interviewed this woman because, you know, that doesn't click in my head. That's not what I wanted to hear, you know?
Yeah.
And then she said, you know, it was known. It was well known back then. If you wanted a problem taken care of, you took it there. Listen, we're not trying to dog the Averys.
No, God, no.
We're going where it leads us.
Right.
You know, and I'm sorry. It is all about two innocent men that nobody's better than these two men.
Correct.
I don't give a shit who you are. Your life is no more valuable than theirs. So sorry if it points back at the Avery salvage yard. I think that she was saying if you were drunk driving, you got in an accident, you could take it out there. I also believe that the cops were using them for the same thing, which means that it probably started with Al, and yes, I believe Chuck's part of that. I think that's the connection right there.
Okay.
And then I believe that they framed Stephen before he even got out, and the people that are involved, whether it's Bobby too, they didn't have a say. You know, it was set up, and they all owe a favor, and you don't want to get killed over this shit. You know, and how easily could they? The funny thing is that, you know, it was Bobby, this 19-year-old kid with all these hits. Where was Chuck all day? You know, I just don't believe that Chuck wasn't, you know, a bigger player in it. I don't think they're going to let 19-year-old Bobby pull off this thing. I don't want anybody to take their eyes off these cops, because first and foremost, it was the cops. If there's other people involved, let's get them. But these cops did not. And
I don't think we might have different opinions on that, but I don't think the cops killed Teresa.
I don't think they'd do that.
No.
Get their hands dirty. I think they'd have somebody else.
They
do
had,
it.
yeah. Because if you dig deep into this case and all the other cases, they have their cells planted in every department, all the way up to the top, to the AG. I mean, their cells are all over the place. So the cops don't necessarily have to get their hands dirty.
Right.
You know. For some reason I still don't believe Teresa's dead, because they haven't found the entire body.
Right. Yeah, that's, you know, a lot of people don't realize that, especially if all you've watched is Making a Murderer, that there is no solid proof that anything they found is Teresa Halbach.
Right. And until somebody can prove it through DNA that was Teresa Halbach's bones, I don't think she's dead.
And that brings me to another point that we were talking about in our video that just came up through research. You know, like I said, we change our mind a lot. We don't know. We're with everybody else. Wherever it brings us is where we're going.
Right.
Right?
Well, that's what Steven says. You know, when people will get upset when filings have come out and pointing at Bobby. And when I've talked to Steven, when I visited him in prison, he's just like, I'm just going where the evidence leads, because he's like, I'm not taking this for nobody, family or not.
Exactly.
You know,
he shouldn't.
Right.
So far, he's spent more than half his life in prison, and he shouldn't have.
Right. And look at all he's lost, because when you go back to the Penny Bernstein case, he was married and had the newborn twins and had 2 other girls and the stepson, and he lost it all.
Everything.
Who knows what his life could have been?
Right.
You know.
Dave Bagaka says when he was on a jet ski when that was all going on, and he came up off that jet ski and the cops stopped him from chasing after who he thought was Alan, but he also said somebody was videotaping it.
And that's never turned up? Nobody has that videotape?
Well, now he says he thinks that it was Bob Ziegelbauer, who's now the county executive right now, this day.
It's funny on how they climb the ladders.
Yeah, so he has a video and he gets a job.
Businesses in town, whether you get, you know, a license or whatever, this is the guy running it. You know? and we can track him back. His parents, you know, they're big in the community
Yep.
too. Yeah, and not probably coincidentally, he had a sister that was brutally stabbed to death in the 80s. Bob Ziegelbaum.
Wow.
Oh wait, they blamed it on a 16-year-old, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who got life in prison
Yeah.
and killed himself 2 years
Yeah.
later.
Oh,
because
my
he said-
God.
He kept saying he didn't do it.
Yeah.
You know.
And you
Yeah.
know now what they're saying about Ricky Hochstetler. Now they're saying, oh, it could have been an illegal immigrant. He's not even here. Could have been this
Ugh.
crazy cab driver that died too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
When I talked to another lady, she told me that she was in a bar one night and 2 years ago, well, 90s, and a woman did get raped in the back of the bar by 2 men, and they put pool balls in her vagina too. Like, do you think Manitowoc could bust this crime somehow?
Yeah.
You think maybe? No, because they got Fensel. Fensel was already in prison when the other woman was raped, and there were pool balls left inside of her, but and I'm telling you.
It's funny that every murder case we have in Manitowoc County doesn't get solved.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it does.
It
but
does,
it's
but
always,
it's never the right.
I mean,
Right.
people don't think
You
that,
know.
that they would do this to Steven. This is what I worry about every single day. That's why my car is locked, my windows are shut, because all they gotta do is put a little something in
Yeah.
there. That is their MO all the time.
Yeah.
And all these cases, if you go back to the Sukawati case, they all have the same playbook.
Yeah, Arlen was part of the Sakawati case
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
It's all the same playbook for each one of these, all the way up to the Stephen and the Ricky case. They're all the kind of same playbook with the same characters. It's like watching the same movie over.
And what about Carmen Bootwell? Is there?
Same characters, same playbook. It's I keep forgetting about her, but she's in that too.
Yeah.
Sketchy. And Deb Kakash was also the coroner for the Boutwell case, and I listened to an interview with her brother supposedly, and he said that they removed Deb Kakash from that case because she, on her private time, called Carmen's grandmother or mother on 2 occasions, and they thought it was inappropriate because she was too emotionally attached.
Oh, really?
And she was apparently saying, "I'm so sorry this happened. What's
Yeah.
going on?"
Yeah.
I see nothing wrong with the coroner doing that.
I'm like,
See, she's on my wish list. I would love to talk to her because, especially if you've watched Making a Murderer 2 and everything that was done to her, my heart just went out to her. And because that's what you want in a coroner. The coroner's job is to find justice for that victim.
right.
Period.
Yeah.
And again, following the evidence.
Like, no, according to Kratz, you just kick them.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Well, and I thought too when I heard that one, I'm like, how nice. Like I said, Mike Glazer, after they changed my brother's death to homicide, never even told my parents. Never even made a phone call to say, hey, this was changed, any of it.
With the
So,
Deb Kakash, what I find weird about that is, why would a coroner need to be out there when there's no body?
right.
Did she accidentally hear something on her police
True.
radio? Because you don't ask
she
for a
did
coroner.
hear about it, I think, from someone else got a hold of her, and then she made the call down, and then they had told her, nope, we don't need you, don't come here. So
But did they find a body?
it was when they found the bones, wasn't it?
They didn't find the bones right away.
No.
It was a couple days later.
Right.
Well,
And Deb Kakash was
Find,
wanted to
we
go-
should say find,
Right.
air quotes, find the bones.
But Deb Kakash wanted to go up there sooner.
mhm,
I think it was the first or second day that they did the search.
mhm.
Yeah.
So what did that person that contacted Deb hear that would make Deb want to go out there if there's not a body?
Right.
That always bothered me.
Yeah.
A coroner don't go out unless there's a body.
Right.
A coroner is not going to go out for a bone.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, I would love to talk to her.
Call
Have
one of
you?
those people that do the shaking in the box.
Well, they had the cops doing that. They didn't even have lab people doing that. You see,
Yeah, the
like,
lab people.
yeah, but you saw it was like Fassbender and Uyghur. One of them, you could see them in the pictures doing that,
Yeah, what
sifting
the
for
hell are they
bones.
looking
What are they
for?
doing that
They
for?
don't know. Yeah. So that whole scenario thing always bothered me.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to be bothered
Yeah.
by in
But there's just a few things in this case that really stick out, and I
mhm.
always ask myself why.
Yeah.
You know, it's just one of those you're never going to get the answer to.
Right. So, do you think then Chuck is part of the club?
Well, this is a hard one here. And one day we had, you weren't with me that day. I had gone out to a restaurant in Francis Creek out there. And I had brought my pictures because I was trying to connect with anybody that would talk to me. Like I said, at first I was worried thinking people are going to want to kill me.
Right.
They're not going to want to look at these. And that isn't how it went at all. They were like, oh my God, I'm going to go call my grandma. Because
Huh.
they all believe and everybody isn't walking around going free Stephen and Brendan, but they don't think he's guilty.
Really?
I said one day I talked to 8 people. All 8 of them had a story about corrupt cops, and all of them thought they were innocent. So that's 100%.
Yeah.
One woman, oh God, this is hard. One woman came and sat down by me, and she said, I went to school with Chuck's daughters. And she said Chuck was raping his daughters in high school.
Oh, wow.
And I said, really? Like, that's interesting, of course, right?
Mhm.
I've also heard a little, we all know what Chuck's record is, because we've all looked it up.
Right.
I'm very suspicious that it was 1998 that he strangled, it was a Candy? Or no, not Candy, sorry.
No.
His wife, his
Yeah.
ex-wife.
He strangled his wife with the phone cord and raped her. That supposedly happened in 98, but it was dropped in 2003. I find that real fishy.
Yeah.
And, so I went to Kim, and we talked about that and what it was like being over there and what was possibly going on with Chuck. And we know stuff about Earl too, because when you read the immediate interviews with Chuck and Earl after Steven's arrested, I think Earl makes a comment saying, yeah, Steve's real manipulative, and I could see how he could manipulate Brendan. And then Chuck was like, he didn't know, but Chuck wasn't, Chuck acted like Steven wasn't the greatest guy either, and I really fucking question that, because they're disgusting rapist assholes.
Right.
Proven. I'm not, I don't know much about Steven. Yeah, he had his shit. I won't
Right.
say
Nobody's saying
didn't.
he's perfect.
Nobody's saying he's perfect, but when you're looking for somebody that possibly allegedly did this to a young woman, why the hell wouldn't you look at these 2 men?
Right.
Right?
Because Earl, what's the thing with him? That he had put a camera in the bathroom, so when his daughters and the daughters' friends were changing clothes to go into a pool.
Right.
Right?
He was
That's one of them.
Yeah,
That's
one of them.
Mm-hmm. And that right there.
Yeah, and when the
is
police came to
more-
the house, he ran and hid underneath a pile of dirt.
clothes.
Yeah.
Well, I think I don't think anybody put him into the plan unless Chuck did, to keep, in case he could ever put it on him. Nobody's going, hey, Earl Avery, there's a bright one. We need to.
Yeah. Well,
execute
Earl's the one
this."
that let Pam of God come search the salvage yard.
Right.
No.
I like that. Fam of God.
So yeah, I found out some shady stuff there. I also talked to somebody that was close to the family and remembers Al used to beat the shit out of Dolores. Like
Really?
it was, and it didn't happen. It happened more often, and I don't know if there was any other deviance shit that went on there,
Right.
but that sucked to find out.
Right.
I mean, not anything I was looking for, and I know he owned a bar, and the people were like he was a total womanizer. There again, he owned a bar.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't know if Steven maybe got a hold of these pictures. We don't know if Chuck had a set of them, but we think Steven knew. And then I think that if Steven said he got rid of the pictures, he got rid of the damn pictures.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So is there anything that, even if he went to Zellner, we don't know. We can't get a hold of Steven. He's not getting Kim's letters. She can't get through to him. But if he got rid of the pictures, that's pretty much it, right? If they're gone, they're gone. There
Right.
isn't any way to pursue it any further, but we just stumbled upon this part of it. So we're trying to put it together in that
Yeah.
way.
Well, maybe Steven's pictures are still in his magic bookcase that could hide a key over how many searches. Then
Maybe
all of
they
a sudden
need
it came
8
out.
more games to search it.
You should really call Colburn.
Get 'em on.
Yeah.
I
Well,
wanted to call him when I was missing the pillowcase, but that's all another story.
and so Courtney, you already said something on this. So Kim, you're not in contact with Steven? You don't talk to him?
No, for some reason, I think I'm blocked from talking to him. I've told other people to tell him to call me, to write to me. I have sent him letters. I don't know. I don't think he's getting his letters. I think for some reason the COs are blocking my letters from getting to him, because it is not like Steve, if I'm reaching out to him, for him not to reach back to me.
Right.
You know, so I don't know what's going on. I just need to talk to him.
Well, because you are known by the whole Making a Murder community as one of the people that have been there for Steven the entire time. Everybody knows that you 100% believe in his innocence.
Right to his first case with the Bernstein, I helped Dolores a lot with a lot of things. In the first case that she couldn't do, Steve always said, "Go ask Kim; she'll help you." You know, so I mean, I was there a lot for the first case. I try to be for the second case, but there was way too much drama, and
Right.
I don't want to deal with that crap. You know, this is about getting Steve out. It's not about who's going to become famous and,
Yeah.
you know, who's got more followers. And I
Yeah.
don't give two craps about that.
Right.
I just
Yeah.
want Steven out and safe. That's all that matters.
Right. Well, that's how everybody should be.
Exactly.
So,
Be standing united as one.
right. I encourage anybody who is watching this, if you write to Steven, tell him to please contact his cousin.
Yes, please, somebody.
And you know, I'd like to say about that mainly because, you know, there are a lot of people on his list, but the way that she talks about Steven is exactly what Steven needs.
Right.
You know, she loves him genuinely, misses him. They have things to talk about. He deserves to have somebody like you visit him. You
Right.
know?
That's no strings. There's
Yeah.
nothing you want.
I want nothing from Steve.
Right.
I want his happiness. That's it. We had fun together when, you know, the years that we grew up together. He was very close to my brother. Steven went to prison on something else when my brother died. So, you know, he went through that trauma, and then his grandma died. So he went through that trauma, and he was in prison. So, you know, Steve has this gentle soul about him that not too many people see. And all the crap that he's been through his whole life, he doesn't deserve it. He just deserves to be happy and left alone. But
Yeah.
Yeah. And then people are asking, what are both of your thoughts on Barb and Bobby and that whole thing? So if you guys want to talk about.
Well, when we just put out a video a while ago, and at that time, you know, I have a feeling from knowing how the cops in this area are, and knowing how they've treated me and people I know and stuff like that, and I was under the belief that they would have treated Barb really shitty. Like, I personally believe exactly what they did with Brendan, they also did with Barb.
Right.
You know, said, "Don't worry, Barb, you know there's nothing to worry about," you know, all of that, and then fucked her. That's what
Yeah.
I kind of...
right.
And so I've been trying to reach out to Barb. Kim gave me Barb's number, and I texted her one day, and she right away got a hold of Kim and said, "Don't give out my number." But Kim explained to her that I'm trying to help free Brendan, and my own brother I'm looking into his case, so she said she'd talk to me, but she wouldn't. She never did. And I just started, you know, really thinking about that, going, "What's up, lady?" You know. And then Kim and I, through other things that we're hearing, and not just the phone calls, although they're horrible,
Yeah.
we just the other day we said, you know, we really have to take a different look at Barb. You know, and
Okay.
I'm not saying that Barb's a mastermind of it either.
No.
You know, I think
No, by
that
no means.
the
Yeah.
people that had to do what they had to do. And like I said, if people can't believe that would happen, look into this type of stuff, because it isn't just like you're in our club, now you get to wear a badge. Now you are the club. There's no more being individual. If you owe them a favor, that's it. You don't want to do it, well, do you like your granddaughter? That's what you're gonna do. They will kill your fucking family.
Wow.
It's true,
Yeah.
you know?
I think Barb, when all this went down, I think Barb was terrified. I think the cops made it worse on her by threatening her, possibly of her other kids.
Well, and they did arrest her too, the
Yeah.
marijuana.
The marijuana, yeah, ooh.
Yeah.
You know, but I think, you know, and I've had to deal with cops before, and I know how they can manipulate you.
They said she was a confidential informant in all of this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they put her out as a confidential informant.
I still to this day am stunned to read that.
Aren't you supposed to get paid if you do that too?
Oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah, right. Oh, and let people know about, real quick before I forget, Making Murder you didn't get paid for.
I haven't received a penny from any interview, any Making a Murder, either one of them. My story, anybody that interviewed me, I never made a penny. Off of merchandise, off the interviews, nothing.
Right.
Nothing.
Never.
No, never.
Yeah, because people just assume.
Yeah, so we
Well, my
kind of...
neighbors thought I bought my house because I made all that money off of the documentary.
Oh, really?
It's like, no, I didn't. I bought my house the same way everybody else does.
Oh, right.
Go to the bank and beg on them. You know?
Yeah.
I still have a mortgage.
Yeah. And you don't have any contact then with like Barb or Carla or
No.
any of the people that you see online?
I reach out to Barb here and there and, you know, how you doing? Hope things are fine, you know. You need anything, I'm here. You know, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Kim and I had tried to get involved in the rally that went on a couple of years ago now. Is it a couple or last year?
It would have been last year.
And it's a long story, but we couldn't figure out who was actually planning it. We kept seeing things about it, so we got a hold of each other and we were, you know, we're like, okay, we can't find anyone planning it, so let's start anything we can do to get people knowing about it. And we tried to set something up, but it didn't go over well. I got an email immediately from Carla and Christine, and they were saying, you know, you don't do this without talking to us first. I'm like, it's fine. I said I did talk to Kim Ducott, and they were like, well, Kim, we don't even talk to Kim, and we'll get a hold of her. We'll set her straight. But they never called her.
No, they never called.
And they never got back a hold of us to help with the rally. You know, we're just two people that are...
We're just trying to get the
know,
word out more. Get
You're
more
trying to
people
bring
there.
awareness to the case and support for the guys, because I do know from talking with Steven, he likes that. He likes, you know, because I've said to him before, because I've got my own issues with the rally because I organized the first one and then Carla's an evil twat. And so I've got my own issues with the rally. So I had said to Steven, the rally is stupid. He likes the rally. He likes, so like in the first one too, it was, he really wanted his mom there. And I was at the salvage yard and I was talking to Dolores. This was before the first rally. And I said, you know, Steven really wants you there. And she's like, I don't want to go. And I'm like, well, but Steven really wants you there. And I had told her we'll rent a chair for her, whatever we need to do.
Right.
Steven loves the idea of a rally and wants to see that show of support, but he doesn't like all the money bullshit that gets surrounded by around it. Plus, he's not getting a dime of it.
And I am so sorry, but, and I've told you this and told you this, I have a real problem with people making money off of Steve. A real problem. If you're going to make a dime off of Steve, it should go to Steve.
Right.
It shouldn't go in your pocket.
Well, now I see that their whole rally page, they started a whole rally page after that. Because they got a hold of me and said, we're going to start a rally page and we'll invite you, and they never did. And you know, like I said, I'm not going to join into the clique.
Right.
Because you're popular. I don't give a shit. My flyer said justice for Teresa Halbach. You know? And of course, you know, but they were just kind of generic. It wasn't through any clique that was running the thing. So even though it was, you know, 250 of them I made up. Took them all around the county.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that came out of your pocket.
Well, it came out of my heart. It
Right.
didn't matter who else was organizing.
Right.
I still needed to do what I thought I could do because, yeah, we need people to rise. We need people to stand up now.
Right.
You
Change
know,
doesn't happen unless you do.
you
Right.
can, like I say, you can be behind all your computers, but what good is it?
Right.
You know, you can have proof in another state, but it's not here.
Right.
I don't care who likes me, who doesn't like me. If Carla has something with me, or Barb, or whoever,
Right.
I don't care. My main purpose right now is to make sure Steve gets out, and Brendan. I always
Right.
say Steve. I never include Brendan, but I do mean Brendan.
Right.
You know, it's just Steve is my main focus.
Right.
He is the only person I care about.
She doesn't really know Brendan.
Right.
It's
No, I
not that
don't.
she doesn't think he
Yeah.
Yeah.
isn't innocent, but she does. She didn't know him so much.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
just a little kid the last time I had any
Right.
contact with him. So,
Yeah.
And that's why I don't speak about Brendan. I won't speak
And that
about
makes
somebody
sense.
I don't know.
Yeah. You're only
You know.
talking about the things that you know.
Yeah. So, you know, I care very much about what happened to Brendan and how he was treated and where he is. But like I said, if Barb or Carla or any of them dislike me for whatever reasons they have, that's fine. I don't care.
Right.
I just
And
care
that kind
about
of
Steve.
brought us to this place too. Like I said, we did our video and we were like, you know, not really poor Barb, but we were trying to get people to see what it's like in this area and
Yeah.
how it could have come down on Barb.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, she's got her own issues of how everything was handled and that. But
Yeah.
what really got me a little pissed off is after Kim got her second threat saying back the fuck off, that we didn't hear from Barb or Carla. You know, she didn't hear from her
Yeah.
family, and I'm like, what's going on? I mean, not like they need to rush around and
Right.
whatever, but why? Where are they? You know, like
Right.
this was real
That's why-
sketchy with us, and even Carla, we know. I don't know. We know she's got a new best friend, and we don't like them, but we don't. We won't.
Nobody likes them.
Thank you. Thanks for not saying it.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, we're just real. Now we're like, what's going on there?
Right.
So, and also, okay, like I said, I'm not real happy to be the one to bring to you that Chuck raped his own daughters, but what's going on here? What's going on here?
Right.
If this happened, where are you in speaking up? Like, why aren't you, what is Carla hiding? Or did she block it out? What the fuck is going on here?
Right.
You say you want these men free, you know, like,
Right.
I just don't understand why anything's hidden. And I'll also say this too, they live on the crime scene.
Yeah.
You know, Chuck, Earl, Carla, you live on the crime scene. Like, really? You're not going to figure this out for us, even though you can? Why? 'Cause I
Right.
think you're part of it.
And, you know, regardless how Carla or any of them feel about me, at the end of the day, you're family. And if something would happen and you called me and needed help, man, I'm going to be there,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Right.
So they need to remember that.
Well, and
I
Steven's the
always-
same way. Steven
Yeah.
has said that too. It's family. He knows. He's talked to me about different members of the family and things they've done, and he's just like, but they're family.
At the end of the day, yeah,
Mhm.
they're still family,
Right.
you know. And I will always be there regardless what kind of trash talk is going on between who and what and
Right.
where. If Carla or Barb or any of them people called me, I'd drop what I'm doing and go to them and help.
Well, because also you don't think like Carla and Barb, they're involved in any of the framing of Steven or Brendan. But now
I
it
think
seems
Barb
they're part
was-
of the cover-up
Yeah,
after the fact.
maybe they're scared for their lives, their children's lives. You know, I think something happened. I think they know a little bit more than what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're scared, I mean, yeah, look what happens
There isn't,
when you talk.
Yeah.
yeah, it wouldn't be like all of a sudden Barb could be like, all right, I'm going to tell the truth about this, or I'm going to say what I know. Who would she go to?
Yeah.
Everybody's in it, you know?
Right.
And that makes
Right.
me,
Right.
you know, yeah, I don't know.
The whole thing's just disturbing
Mm-hmm.
at so many different levels.
Right.
Right. Well, and as you're saying, Courtney, you know, the whole click thing. So it seems to be you have to do what they're doing, you know, do as they say, or now you're out and we're going to cut off your access and now you don't get to speak to Steven.
Right, and that's what seems like it happened to me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I no longer able to get to Steve. So I don't know.
And all you want to do is talk to him and brighten his day.
Yeah, I want to make sure he's all right. That I'm still here, still doing what I can. But how is he going to know that if nobody lets him know I'm trying to do all that?
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, once again, I'll remind everybody who's watching, if you write to Stephen, please tell him that his cousin is trying to get in touch with him. Yeah. So, anything else that we need to cover that we haven't?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
This is probably going to be the hardest thing that we have said so far in this case. Oh God, I'm not going to cry. In our research on Chuck, and I went to the salvage yard because I was going to support that family, and I got my sweatshirt and I shook Chuck's hand. And then I would call my friend Kim and say, "Oh, I'm gonna go to that salvage yard. I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna get anything I need. I wonder if they do oil changes." And one day Kim says to me, "Court, don't go out to that salvage yard anymore." You okay? And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And she said, "It's not safe out there." I said, "Why is that?" And she said, "Chuck raped me too."
Oh my
And
God.
she's worried about me going out there and getting hurt. And so that day
Yeah.
we had to, she didn't really ever talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a big day that she would even say such a thing.
Yeah.
And wasn't really comfortable saying it. And we've had that for a while, and we don't know.
But you were going out there by yourself, and that scared me.
Yeah. And then talked more about that, and it sounds like you were 11 years old.
Yep.
So how old was he at that time?
He was married and had two daughters.
Oh, wow.
And I think it was one day we said, this is relevant in everybody looking at Stephen and not Chuck, and what is really going on here,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That we didn't really know how. We're not, like I said, it's leading where it's leading, but there was a day she said, "Fuck Chuck,"
Right.
because this is about Stephen. And
Mhm.
why should she keep Chuck's secrets anymore? What the fuck is going on?
Right.
This is not, and I personally think the most loyal thing you could do for Stephen would be to speak up about this, because this is exactly what he's accused of.
Right.
And we have somebody that nobody's looking at.
Mhm.
And even the people in his life won't speak up about it and can't speak up about it for whatever their reasons are. But there's so many other people that need to be looked at,
Right.
and this is so wrong. And why hasn't this come up with Carla or Barb or anyone else?
Right.
What the heck is going on?
Well, and this would also explain why Kim isn't close to many in the family. If, this is something that's happened to you, obviously you're not going to be having family Christmas.
And didn't you also tell him, or you said you talked to Carly and you said, "I have secrets," and we think maybe she's a little worried the secrets will come out,
Right.
because for some reason, either I'll give her some compassion and maybe she's blocked it out,
Mhm.
or maybe she's protecting her dad. Okay, there's people profiting on
Right.
these men being in jail.
Yes.
And I'm just going to be honest, when I read the Stephen Avery, Brendan Dassey project, when I read their list of who they're donating to, I just can't even believe it. I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
can't believe it. I am a huge fan of Dolores. If you ask
Yes.
me, Dolores for president, man, she is.
Right.
And if it weren't for Dolores, we wouldn't be here.
Right.
Al wasn't doing all that shit. It was Dolores.
Mm-hmm.
She
And then
worked
to
her
find
fingers
out-
to the bones for that.
Right.
Yeah.
To find out he was beating her and being, I just have to say, Chuck raised some pretty shitty fucking kids. I mean, Al did.
Uh-huh.
So he's not man of the year,
Right. Right.
And then to see that they're taking donations for Dolores's medication, I get it. Hey,
Yeah.
Dolores, call my sister, I'll help you with it. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
But why aren't they paying for their own mother's medication? You know what I
Correct.
mean? Al, where the hell are you? Why should Al's got some money? We think Al's actually got some good money, you know, that people don't know about. It's not their fault people are throwing money at them.
Right.
But, you know, it's just... You
But
know,
they shouldn't be profiting off of
they
Stephen and
flat
Brennan
out
being in
say that
prison.
they're making money, you know, substantial amount from the sweatshirts that is going to pay for the salvage yard and Chuck and all this shit. No, people.
Yeah.
Let's regroup here and really think about what the money needs if you want to give money or whatever to something different, you know.
I've always told people that if you're somebody who just wants to throw your money at this case, you can put it directly in Stephen's canteen or send it to Kathleen Zellner and
Right.
tell her where you want the money to go.
Exactly.
Kathleen has a whole Stephen Avery page, and there's a clickable link right on there on how she's got on there how to put the money to his canteen and to his defense.
I say save
Right.
your money and get here and let's get a rally and nothing scheduled. And weren't you telling me about how they want $1,200 for the permit and then $1 million down for insurance?
Oh, that was on the first one I organized until I got the Wisconsin ACLU involved, and then we were able to do it for free.
Isn't that interesting how they've just that's what they want us all to
Well,
believe. Don't gather.
They
you
told
know?
me, so when I was organizing the first rally, they had told me that I would have to pay $1,200 for the permit, and then I needed to have a $1 million liability insurance policy. And most of that $1,200 was going to be going to Manitowoc Sheriff's Department for providing security for the event.
Oh yeah, that's what they needed.
Yeah.
security
So
there.
then I told them that, well, then that's fine. I'll just have the rally on the sidewalk and I don't need a permit for it. And they said, no, you can't. And I said, yes, I can. That's public property and is my constitutional right for peaceful protest. And they said, no, that's our sidewalk. And I said, oh, no, it's not. And so I contacted the Wisconsin ACLU, who then got involved. And the Wisconsin ACLU then contacted Manitowoc and told them that they have to turn over all communications, anything in writing, any calls, everything to the ACLU if my name was mentioned. And then it was agreed upon, the thing that I said the whole time, is that we can have the rally on the sidewalk, that you can't go on the courthouse property, but you could be on the sidewalk.
Right.
And it was the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department that were being the assholes. Manitowoc Police were very lovely. Manitowoc Police Department was very lovely
And
to
that's
me.
what people need to understand.
Right.
Those are two totally different agencies.
Right. So because something people were worried about is there's some kind of thing that says that if you're doing a protest, you have to be moving the whole time. And if you stop, that's when they can get you for like loitering. And so we have people like Dolores, and there were other people who aren't going to be capable of moving
Right.
the whole time. So I discussed it with the police department, and so then they told me they were going to mark off a section of the parking lot where we could set up tables and chairs and people could sit and
Right.
nothing would happen to them. So yeah, so I do that too. I make sure people know it's not Manitowoc Police, it's Manitowoc Sheriff's Department that are the ones that cause all the issues. But so I have been against the rallies ever since then, because I was kicked off the rally literally days prior to that first one. And the rallies have just become a way of Carla raising money and all that, instead of it being an awareness thing. If
Right.
it's something in the future that you two want to organize an actual real rally, I will jump in the ring with you guys and help you organize that.
I don't want a permit.
Well, we don't
And
have
I
to get a
want
permit.
people to show up.
Right.
And I want us to get this done. I'm sorry.
Trust me, I'm from
We
the
need
I'm
this
from the
boy out.
Chicago area. I have organized I don't know how many protests in Chicago where we have taken the streets of Chicago and walked the streets. So I know
That's
the
what I
rules
want.
now.
That's what I want in Manitowoc. I want so many people that we do need an escort.
Like I said,
Right.
save your money. Save your money, and if somebody can't make it to the rally, help them get to the rally. We need people to show up now. We got it. We've got to get these guys out. And we're never going to do it sitting behind our computers.
Right.
I'm sorry. And you know, I don't know if Carla and Christine or whoever's running the rally intentionally keep it small. I don't know. I think they want to get a profit out of it. If they're going to
Right.
do it, they want a profit. There is no profit. We were going to donate. We were going to buy brats out of our own pockets
Right.
and buns just to feed the people to get them here.
Yeah.
So, And Kim, you said at the last one, you said the worst thing about the rallies is when people don't show up.
Right, that's what
Because then
I've said.
people
It
don't see,
hurts the
nobody
cause.
cares, yeah.
It hurts the cause
for
when you
itself.
have Making a Murder, which is like the biggest Netflix show ever in the history of Netflix,
Right.
and you have 50 people who show up, and like 20 of them are somehow related to the family.
Right.
You know, so I mean, that looks bad. So what I will say is, you're saying save your money for that. Well, you know, Kathleen just filed her brief the other day, so maybe
Now's a
we're
good time.
yes, so maybe we're going to be getting an evidentiary hearing or another trial. So when that happens,
Let's gather. Bring your mask if that's what you want.
correct,
You know.
we want people to be safe.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But let's gather. Let's get hundreds of people here for that.
Right.
Let's show our support.
Yeah, so we can absolutely organize something around that, whenever that is, knock on wood, or because since now the judge doesn't have a time limit, who knows when that's gonna, so we can come up with a date in the
Right.
future. Yeah,
Sounds like a plan.
It's a good plan. My plan is more show up and don't leave until
you want to
until
occupy.
Uyghur is walked out of office. That's how I
Tell
feel
people
about
where Wiegert is now. What's his role?
Sheriff, Calumet County Sheriff,
Yep.
Weegie.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So, and then where can they find you on Reddit? What is the name for them to find on Reddit?
Justice for Chris, the number 4.
Uh-huh.
And I don't do much. I was on one of the other Reddit things. I won't mention their names and even say it, but
Right.
we also, if anybody wants to see the video we just put out, I just had to start a YouTube channel. It's Courtney Skinner. My face is on it. It was just a video of me and Kim and another local talking out of frustration and trying to put some stuff out there.
Okay. Well, and we'll get it shared too if any of the moderators are on here. If you want to find that and link it on to both Stephen Avery Project and MAM Gossip, so people can see that. You know, and then maybe we'll get together again at some time and do something else. Or
Another thing, I just put my email address out there. It's Courtney, COATNAY @yahoo.com. And any local that is ready, anybody that wants to talk to us,
Yes.
anybody that needs some support, we need their support, and we're here.
well, and I've said a million times, I want to talk to the coroner, and I want to talk to the bus driver. The bus driver is somebody I want to talk to,
Right.
because I have proved there's no way she could have seen Teresa Hallback. So I need to. I just want to know. I want to talk to her and find out for sure, where were you and what did you see?
Right.
Because I know you can't see Barb's house from the mailboxes. Can't do
No.
it. Yeah,
Very
so
interesting.
I would like to talk to the bus driver. So, all right, then we're gonna end this and look.
Can you just turn it around to you a minute so
Sure.
everybody can
She's
see
baking in
that
the
we're
sun.
baking in the sun? Let me see.
I know
And
it's
there
hard
you-
to see the screen because
Right?
there's sun on it.
Okay,
I
there you
just
go.
noticed
You
you
can
were
keep it on you.
sweating
Yeah,
and-
keep it on you.
Okay.
Here.
So thank you everybody for joining us today, and look for us to go live again. Maybe we'll go on a field trip at some point and show you some things, or maybe we'll do a live at some point where it's just you asking these 2 questions. Now that you've heard some of their story, we'll give you an opportunity to question them. So maybe that'll be another episode. So
Right.
thank you
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks.
Have a good weekend. Get in the shade so I can see how to end it.